The Grand and Elusive Disclosure. 13 years ago, I was introduced to the secret world of hidden knowledge. And I was introduced to it by waking up and by joining people involved in the UFO community. And for 13 years, I have heard, I've been told, I have been messaged, I have channeled, I have written about something called the disclosure. What is the disclosure? Well, the world doesn't work the way we think it works. A. B. There are hidden truths, hidden knowledge, hidden discoveries that are connected to other civilizations and or extraterrestrials. Yes, people who come from other planets, other systems, other dimensions, other timelines. Now, all of these hidden truths have been there for a long time, and society has been operating without that knowledge, under false assumptions, and everything is fine. But people who have learned and studied these truths have been awaiting the disclosure. Now, the disclosure, there are people who want the disclosure, and there are people who don't want the disclosure. And so there's been this negotiating between those who want it, and not just in the human realm, but in the stellans who want disclosure, against the other groups and agencies who don't want the disclosure. Let's say the cabal types, the cabal alliances, the syndicates of suppressing knowledge, the secret societies. Why? Well, there are many reasons why, right? Because if you have these secrets, and you have secret technology, you have military weapons, you have longevity, you have spiritual knowledge, that is an advantage over most of the world. You can become an elite. You could become very rich. You could become, you could live a very luxurious life by being part of this group. But most people, the billions of people, do not know this, and they suffer in disease, poor health, lack of income, lack of knowledge, adherence to religious ideology, lack of self-development, self-actualization, ascension, right? All of these things. So the disclosure was meant to equalize that discrepancy, right? Because it's out of control. I mean, the small, the few control the many. The disclosure means, well, now most people have access to the same kinds of things, maybe not all of it, but they can lift themselves up and lift the planet up, lift the vibration, the frequency of the planet to a higher level. That's the disclosure. Because star beings, angelic beings, cannot lift up billions of people and keep them lifted. Right? You can motivate, you can inspire, but you can't permanently raise the vibration of billions of people. But there is a more powerful weapon that can, and it's called knowledge. In this case, is secret knowledge, hidden knowledge. So the disclosure brings up this hidden secret knowledge and educates society. And already we're seeing that. We're already seeing that. Now people are aware of secret societies, people are aware of the cabal, people are aware of the secret space program. But we're only scratching the surface of what's really going on. And already you're seeing that empowerment, that spiritual growth. Because now you have more tools in the toolbox. You have more ideas. You can expand your mind more. You're no longer limited to the previous set of beliefs and ideology. There's an alternative to what you were programmed to do. And that creates conflict with the traditional systems, which have always said this is the best thing. And it's been around for thousands of years, therefore it is good. Now when you get educated, you realize there's a bunch more stuff. And there are other planets, and there are civilizations on other planets. And this is huge. The secret space program says that we have been flying to these other planets and trading with these other advanced races, and they've been coming here. So, and this has been going on, let's say, in a modern era since the 50s. Since the 30s, we're starting to meet these extraterrestrials. The 50s, we have bases on other planets and the moons. We are flying. By the 80s, we have our own space fleet. None of this is public, but it should be public. We should know, everybody should know that we have a space fleet or a space force, part of the secret space program. Everybody should know that there are extraterrestrials, and basically they are people from other planets, other star systems, who have mastered star travel, who can go through star portals, who have advanced technologies that they would like to share with us. Imagine they had technologies to clean the air, to purify the water, to cure disease, to build free energy devices, systems, that we can wean ourselves off of electricity, that we can wean ourselves off of gasoline. So the disclosure, this is the disclosure. All of this hidden technology, hidden knowledge, and some of it is highly classified, and it's supposed to come out. And it was supposed to come out decades ago, but there has been this negotiation. Society is not ready. So the disclosure is going to happen. It is a definite thing. And as I have said before, there's no definitive date and amount of data. It's a process. Because I think that's part of the negotiation. It's a process. We will release bits of information, and as society acclimates, adjusts, then more is released. Now, so a lot of it hinges upon society adopting and accessing and believing this stuff and making use of it. So the cabal group, who has no choice in to stop it, what they can do is they can counterattack it, right? Counterintelligence, make you afraid of the knowledge, make you not trust the knowledge, make you resistant to the knowledge, to create distractions. There's a war, there's a threat, there's a disease. So as this knowledge comes out, you're going to see this counterattack. You're going to see disinformation agents. You're going to see, and they don't say I'm a disinformation agent. No one says I'm a disinformation agent. You don't know if that's a distraction, that's real, or that's a false flag. You don't know. But if this truth is coming out, you know that this counter stuff will be there alongside it to diminish the effect, to weaken that spiritual growth, to make people afraid and reluctant to adopt these ideas. And then they'll inject false ideas and false statements, even false gurus. So my view is we have to go through the disclosure, and we have to support the disclosure, support the people who speak the truth. Realize that there's a lot of hidden knowledge, hidden discoveries, things that once belonged to science fiction. And they are real, and they need to be studied. You know, the ruins under Antarctica, in other parts of the world. Ruins, ships, even bodies of ancient aliens. It's been there. Now, the cabal groups have been studying this stuff for decades. They've been trying to back engineer weapons that are 10,000 years ahead of us. That's a pretty cool job to have, right? You get to study this technology that's 10,000 years ahead of us, or you get to work on the new optical mouse. So there's a lot of, what do you call that? There's a lot of attachment to what these people have been doing in secret. Now, whether it's for military purpose or scientific purpose or spiritual purpose, they have every reason to hold stuff back. And they don't understand everything. And some stuff can be very dangerous if someone gets a hold of it, right? If you have a device, a weapon that can cause earthquakes, right? And somebody back engineers it, then you can start doing a lot of damage, right? We haven't needed nuclear weapons ever since they invented climate weapons, which goes back to the 60s or 50s, 60s. They have climate weapons, which came about from all of these negotiations with extraterrestrials, from back engineering their technology and doing all this in secret. So the disclosure has been elusive because every time there's going to be a disclosure, there's a negotiation. Wait, let us finish this. We will compromise. We'll give them a smartphone. We'll let them have a smartphone. We'll cure this disease. We'll put up wireless networks. And then that's kind of the negotiation. And then in the future, we will have your disclosure. Now, I've gone through this now in 13 years, and I'm still new to this game. People have been at it for many more decades than that, for 30 years, 40 years. Now, so 13 years, every month or every other month, there's going to be a disclosure. The truth is coming out. There's been an agreement. And every time, even the best information, there's something that interrupts that process. Whether it's a promise from the cabal, or whether it's a new war, whether it's a political thing, crisis, something prevents that disclosure from happening. But it has been happening slowly by all the alternative speakers. The alternative teachers have been releasing that secret knowledge. Maybe it hasn't all been validated, hasn't all been proven and verified, but they have been releasing it. Over the last 13 years, there's been a lot of release of knowledge for those people who are ready for it, who want it. And it turns out there are tens of thousands of people who do want it. So those people have woken up. But now we're getting to the larger population, and they're going to need a more mass media effect. And that means we need to negotiate. There has to be an agreement, and that means the bigger the secrets are going to start to emerge. And it's not going to all emerge at once. And a lot of the time, it will not be introduced as a secret. A lot of the times, to diminish the effect, they'll try to introduce it as something they've been working on, right? We developed a new weapon. They don't tell you it was back engineered from extraterrestrial weapon. But our scientists have developed a new weapon. But they don't tell you the backstory. And so people see the new weapon, which is basically a declassified weapon. And if you know what's going on, you know it's connected to these extraterrestrial black projects. Same thing with everything else, whether it's a new technology, it's a new science. Because you look at stem cells, or where do stem cells come from? They came from these secret projects, right? Genetic engineering programs. They were experimenting, they found out stem cells are very valuable. Now, there was an agreement. We're going to release this stuff. And so the Stellans, the Alliance, released the stem cells, and the other side, they tried to slow it down and prevent it. But no one said this is a disclosure, right? No one said that this came from the black projects. No one said that extraterrestrials were in the vicinity of this research. But stem cells are a medical cure. And that, to me, that is also a disclosure. But it's a way to soften the disclosure and to avoid the extraterrestrial discussion. Because once you talk about extraterrestrials, people start to have anxiety. So you look at stem cells. Well, that came from these secret programs. If you look at certain military weapons, if you look at climate weapons, well, they haven't admitted they exist, but when they do, that came from the black projects. That came from the extraterrestrial, right? When they talk about a space force, that came from cooperation with star beings. When we, right? So some of this stuff is not labeled disclosure, but it is disclosure, right? So we've already had some of this stuff, and we've never thought of it as disclosure. And that's one way to minimize the negative effect and to avoid the anxiety. But we're getting to a point where eventually it's going to get to a point where, the alien stuff has to come out, has to be talked about. And they'll find a way to explain it so that people don't get scared. By the same token, I think people are more open to aliens now. They're not afraid of aliens and space monsters. That these people are advanced. They're just advanced races. So I think people are more open to it. And when it's released, I think people will be open to it. And some of it is also being shown through the media, through film and television. It doesn't say disclosure. The movie doesn't say this is part of the disclosure, but within the film, within the story, within the television show, there are things there that come from the disclosure that's being introduced through entertainment. This has been going on for decades, way before me. But it doesn't say disclosure. Again, that's one way to mitigate, to reduce the negative effect of all of this stuff, right? Time travel. Well, time travel, where does that come from? It comes from the extraterrestrials, the star beings. Time travel. Stargates. Where does that come from? Right? So you see what I mean? So some of it, so some people say, well, where's the disclosure? Well, the disclosure has been happening since I've been here for 13 years. And it's going pretty fast. If you know what to look for, there you see lots of it. There is quite a bit on the table right now. And over the next few years, it's going to increase. It's going to increase until it gets to such a point where people are going to say, oh, you know, why did you hide this from us? How long have you been suppressing this stuff? Right? They're going to start to say, who did it? Who's behind it? And then they're going to start to say, well, was that earthquake artificial? Hundreds of thousands of people died. We need to relook at that. Right? And that's when we start to hit the dirt and say, oh, this is serious. And then we start, and then it starts to come out. And then we start to, once we go through that process, there's going to be counter initiatives, there's going to be support, and the people are going to have to deal with this stuff. They're going to wake up, right? And they're going to go, oh, I've been lied to. Well, what else are they lying to me about? So this stuff is going to multiply and increase. I think we need to support it. We need to keep pushing forward. And we need to get to as much of the truth as we can handle and to look into things. I think you should get excited about looking into it. Well, what kind of ships are they? What are they doing? How fast do they go? How big are they? What's the technology? What's the propulsion system? The bases on the moon. How do you make a lunar dome? How old are the aliens? How old are the giants under Antarctica? How smart are they? What's their religion? What's their spirituality? Does that mean I am a descendant of these people? Does that mean I have interstellar DNA? Does that make me different? What's the definition of a human? Are we human still? If we've all been engineered, we're not human anymore. We're something else. But we look human. You know, kind of get, my view is, this is we're moving forward. Let's get interested, get curious, get motivated, get inspired. Because it's there. It's always been there. It's not new. It's always been there. And some of the stuff is pretty wild. And say, hey, you know, that's okay. Just, all right. There are people here from other planets. That's my take. My take is the disclosure has been happening and it will increase. It will happen faster until such a point where there's a kind of like this kind of clash. It's important for the Earth to go through this process and to level out the knowledge across the planet so that we all have the same basic knowledge. We all basically know where we came from. We know who's out there. We know the kind of technologies that are out there. We know our potential. We know the kind of races that are out there. It doesn't mean, it never means you have to accept everything. It never means you have to make friends with all the aliens. It just means that it's an education. You need to be aware of it, right? When you go to school, everybody has to study math.